You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
Blinded me with science. Welcome to In the Lab with Genifer and my wonderful co-host Jill Lamoureux. Hi, Jill.
Hi, Jen.
We are very excited for our first In the Lab with Genifer show. I'm going to be talking about science and everything we could possibly imagine related to science. I can imagine we'll probably get off the subject of science sometimes. But anyway, first, let me introduce myself. I'm Jenifer Murray, and I am the owner and founder of Can Labs, an analytical laboratory that tests cannabis. And right now, my lab tests potency. And soon we will be testing residual solvents, which I'll get into that later, pesticides, and then microbials. All the things important to patients and adult use. Can Labs was established in April of 2010. And basically, we are all about providing a mechanism for safe and effective medicine. That's basically our motto, if you will. So anyway, after Can Labs was established, we have been trying to build the science, obviously. And I know that there are a ton of people out there that have questions about the science and about cannabis, and I'm hoping that this will be a place where you will be able to get all those questions answered. And what we're going to try to do here is make it as if it's like a library. So you'll be able to look back on shows if you had a question with that topic. So, for instance, we're going to be talking about concentrates next Monday, and we will have Matt Ellis in. He is a concentrate expert on CO2, butane, propane, and a few other solvents. So he'll be talking to us about the risks and benefits of each of those and kind of giving us 2 cents on that. And also, I'd like to say hello to the Pediatric Cannabis Therapy Group that is on Facebook. I was first introduced to them during Science Corner on the Stanley Brothers Realm of Caring show. And I know that they always have a ton of questions, and I'm going to try to get those answered for those wonderful parents that have decided to step out of their comfort zone and try to do some other things for their children, since pharmaceuticals don't seem to be working with a lot of diseases and illnesses. So anyway, let's talk to you, Jill. Why don't you introduce yourself, give us some background, and then tell us what you're doing now.
Jill Lamoureux. I was formerly the owner of CDS, which had 4 stores in Denver and Boulder area. And I am now working with Americans for Safe Access. So ASA was founded in 2002. It is the largest national organization of patients, medical professionals, researchers, scientists, and other concerned citizens and legislators for promoting safe and legal access to cannabis. And so the strategy that ASA employs is a multifaceted one, which includes public education, litigation, grassroots development, media campaigns, and direct support services. So ASA has a wonderful legal team which helps patients for free when needed.
Wow.
And coming up, so everybody...
Yeah, explain that.
So ASA evaluates legal cases based on merit and decides which ones that they can take on. And so there's a wonderful patient coordinator named Lindsay, who all patients can call with any issues if it comes to child custody, employment, and talk to her about what they've got going on. And then ASA will determine if that case should go forward and will invest tons of funds into helping patients with those cases. So that's been great. One thing ASA has coming up this session in California is an employment rights bill, and that's something that we have not seen in any state yet.
Wow.
So we have a lot of hope that that will move forward. And to become an ASA member, it's only $35 for the year, so we encourage you to go to safeaccessnow.org and sign up as a member, and if you can give more, that would be great. We have a Patient Unity Conference coming up February 22nd through the 25th in Washington, D.C., and that is going to focus on science of medical cannabis, so a whole day is devoted to that. Dr. Abrams is one of our board members who will be analyzing submissions for that session, and it should be amazing. So very excited about that. And there is also scholarship money available. If you wanted to attend the conference and do not have the funds to do so, please check out the website, and we will be sending, not quite sure how many people, but lots and lots of patients free of charge to that conference.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And what's that website again?
safeaccessnow.org.
safeaccessnow.org. Wow, I was introduced to Steph Shear, who started ASA, I think last summer, and she basically sat me down and gave me a politics 101, if you will, and kind of helped me understand, about ASA, why she, built it, and what it does for patients. And I can imagine how many patients have no idea it's out there. So I hope that we all spread the word on that, and I also hope that we can all give $35, because that's definitely, going to move this industry forward for sure.
Best $35 you'll ever spend. And Steph has got to be one of the most passionate people I have ever met about this cause, a patient herself. And ASA really formed around safe access for patients. And as we've seen more and more states grant access through dispensaries and caregiver programs, ASA is starting to incorporate best practice into the industry. And so that's the project I'm working on. We have teamed with the American Herbal Products Association to develop safe medicine and industry practice for patients who are buying in a retail market.
Well, that's fantastic. And I can tell you this. Everybody here in Colorado wants regulation, and they want to be accountable. And if they don't, slowly but surely, they're disappearing. Because this needs to be taken very serious, and we all want to abide by the law. And speaking for Can Labs, just having a specific license available for laboratories is going to raise the bar tremendously. And I'm looking forward to that day.
It was interesting. I participated on the first regulatory work group when 1284 first passed, and so many members of that work group were advocating for best practice and safety and cleanliness. And the regulators at that point were so much more law enforcement focused than safety focused, and kept saying we need to take baby steps. This is a new industry. And it is, but we also have so much evidence available when you look at herbal products and other food products that are made, that it's not new, and a lot of that can be incorporated. And teaming up with APA, the American Herbal Products Association, has just been wonderful, and hopefully will help us bring legitimacy to this issue. This is not a law enforcement issue. This is a product on the market for patients to purchase. And if you want a retail license, there should be some standards that you have to meet. That said, there's no desire to prohibit caregiver access or individual patients growing. One of the great things I don't think most people know is that patients themselves can bring samples to Genifer and to Can Labs to see what they are growing themselves and how it's turning out and how they can become better growers.
Yes, I'm so excited about that. Now that the Colorado 64, it's actually Article 18, right?
Yes.
Article 18 says that any person or persons over 21 and older can possess 1 ounce of cannabis, and they can grow up to 6 plants. They cannot buy or sell yet. That's not until 2014, but right now they can grow. And so Can Labs will be able to accept your samples if you're curious about what you are growing at home. And I'd like to make a mention about CBD right now. But CBD is, as far as we know, the most, if you will, medicinal cannabinoid in the plant right now. And you cannot tell if you have CBD in your plant unless you do get it tested. And unfortunately, it turns out to be kind of ugly. I mean, I don't think it's ugly, but people, that have gone by the beauty of cannabis have gotten rid of strains that were high in CBD because they didn't know, which is very, very interesting. But yeah, it's not a high yielder. A lot of the plants are squatty and just kind of, shabby. So if that's kind of what you're growing, you never know. It might be a CBD strain, and if it is, it's a very, very important to keep that strain or give it to somebody that is making medicinal products, because most people don't like to. Have you found most people don't like to smoke high CBD product?
Yeah, I would agree, especially from owning a store that most people were looking for high THC content, but the patients who were really looking for pain relief without intoxication wanted the high CBD strains. And they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. And one of the interesting things is just deciding when to harvest can determine your CBD content and THC. So as you're testing, you can try harvesting at different times to isolate higher CBD or higher THC depending on what you're looking for.
Really?
Yes.
So I didn't know that. I do not grow. I can't even grow a philodendron that actually tells you when to water it. So needless to say, and both my parents are complete green thumbs, but for some reason that fell off before I got it. So I know nothing about growing. So tell us again. So you owned how many dispensaries and grows, and what happened with that? I think it's very important that we talk about that a little bit.
We kind of ebbed and flowed with 1284 and the whole mandating partnerships, but we did get federal letters in September. We got 2 of the last round of 11, so about 20% of the letters. And at that point, we, it was really frustrating because we were within 1,000 feet of schools, but both facilities were in medical office buildings with no signage. So it was not a happy day, but it has freed me up to do other things and more advocacy, so I'm thrilled about that. And running a business is extremely time-consuming and difficult, as all of you who do it know. So we really tried to focus on the patients and the medicinal side, and it was sometimes frustrating because you're in this legal environment. You're trying to provide an herbal product to people. And so it was, it was bittersweet, I guess, getting the letters. But at the same time, it was exciting to not be driving to the bank, which I was lucky enough to have every night to do deposits. So my evenings are freed up, and I'm excited about that.
Well, that's what I would ask you. It's why stay in a business that has just, kind of ripped your heart out, if you will, along with your wallet too? What do you have inside you that makes you continue with this industry?
Well, it's primarily who I'm married to, which is a patient. And seeing what medical cannabis did for us and our quality of life just blew my mind. And I had been a recreational smoker for a very long time. And we were at the surgeon's office, and Mike, my better half, had been on 200 milligrams of OxyContin a day at that point.
Oh, my God.
And was going, I can't do this anymore. I need something else. I've tried everything. He ran through the gamut of narcotics, and the surgeon said, all right, let's try medical marijuana. And Mike just kind of said, I smoke every day. It doesn't work. And the surgeon just looked at him deadpan and said, you're using it wrong. And that's kind of what started our evolution into discovering tinctures, edibles, topicals, how topicals can break the blood barrier and give you immense relief without the psychoactive effects, which I particularly think are a lot better side effect than explosive diarrhea and some of the other things you hear on TV.
Yeah.
I mean, if the side effect is happiness, great. Bleeding. Yeah, anal bleeding.
No,
some
it's
of those
true.
things you hear. So I'm passionate.
Constipation.
I am passionate about the science and the evolution of this miracle herb. It can do so many things, and the fact that NIDA and DEA are consistently restricting research kills me. And at the same time, adult use should be available. But one of the great things about being in Colorado right now is that adult use can help promote medicinal cannabis. They are not mutually exclusive, even though they are two politically different topics. One will lead to advances in the other, and that's what I am thrilled about.
And with that, we'll end our first segment. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Cannapunch is a delicious and effective medical marijuana beverage proudly made right here in Colorado. Each bottle is freshly infused with 100% pure flower extract from the highest grade marijuana plants available today. Using proprietary extraction methods, every bottle of Cannapunch is consistently and reliably infused with an exact milligram dosage that you can count on to relieve your symptoms each and every time. Cannapunch is delicious. There's never any medicine-y taste. We use only 100% cannabis flowers. No trim or byproducts are ever used in Cannapunch. It does not require refrigeration and comes in convenient, resealable multi-dose bottles from 60 milligrams to 200 milligrams. We have drinks with dosage that works best for you. Cannapunch is available in a variety of delicious flavors like black cherry, watermelon, pineapple mango, and blue raspberry. And we now have strain-specific beverages available just for you. Cannapunch is delicious, convenient, consistent, and effective. Give it a try and experience the Cannapunch difference.
Tired of dispensary hopping? Trying to find quality meds? Look no further and get to know Greenworks. Our shops are stocked with over 20 strains of organically grown meds, including R4, the highest tested CBD strain in Colorado. Yes, we back up our quality with testing. While Greenworks offers only the highest quality meds, we don't believe in high prices, with eighths ranging from $20 to $40 and ounces capped at $175. With 2 centers in Denver and 1 in Glenwood Springs, we're likely closer than you think. Call 303-647-5210 to find the location nearest you.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to Cannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
And I want to say, talk it up, Colorado. I just had to repeat that. Anyway.
We love Gary Johnson.
So back to the moving the industry forward, and there's some controversy amongst the industry and some other, and just in conversation about how legalization or 64 is going to kill medical. And in my opinion, yes, it's the number of people that go in and want to be listed on the registry is going to go down. But I think the patients will increase, because I think there's a lot of people out there that want to try this but are scared and don't want to be on a list. I mean, whether it's insurance or family or whatever. So in that aspect, I think that it's going to be great for those people. I also believe that actually the medicine is just getting started. We have not been able to research, especially in this country, and now that it's legal, I hope that there will be a lot of research done here in Colorado.
I think we're still going to see a lack of research, unfortunately, at this point. because most universities who have the capacity to do that type of research are federally funded. And they are still chicken. Oh, wait, I'm not allowed to swear. Chicken.
Chicken poop.
S-H-I. Yes, they're still chicken poop. However, the ability to do private research and the amount of, depending on how they craft adult use and whether or not out-of-state money can come in or whether or not there's people in the state willing to fund this type of research, we're going to see private interest as well. I mean, we see Sativex and other GW, which, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
They are paying for research, and so that's great. And we hope to see that continue, and we hope to see the schools get more cojones.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we have two wonderful, let's say 3 or 4 wonderful colleges. CSU, where I graduated from, go Rams. CU, unfortunately, the Buffaloes. Just kidding. And then DU and Colorado College. I mean, that's a great college too. So hopefully they will jump on board somehow, some way. And I just don't want people to lose sight that this is a miracle plant. It's. I mean, just everything I've learned in 3 years is amazing about this plant. But what I want people to understand is just because we are pro-cannabis, because of all the great patients that we've met and everything, doesn't mean we want children doing drugs, including cannabis. We don't want, people driving impaired, all of that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I guess is a good time to talk about the task forces that are going on. Unfortunately, people think that we just want a bunch of drug addicts driving around, and that's just not the case.
It's not, and it is frustrating. And I'll never forget talking to Mason Tvert, who is one of the authors of 64, and this was even 2 years ago. And he's like, people have to learn to put this in their trunk. You don't drive around with an open container of liquor, and we need more responsible users and education about the actual impacts. And the research on DUID, which is driving under the influence of drugs, is so limited at this point. And we're seeing this bill be introduced for the 3rd time when it comes to DUID. So that will be an interesting topic on an upcoming show, as well as the science of actually drug testing. But no, our concern is not about allowing people to be inebriated everywhere in public, but to be on par with alcohol and other recreational drugs. But as far as the science goes, we need to carve out some amendments for patients here, and that's what ASA will be working on with other patient groups and industry organizations as we see this come up. We've already seen I think it's 13-114 House Bill, 13-114, which is the DUID, Driving While Impaired bill. And so we'll be talking about that quite a bit.
Yeah, so to refresh, let's just assume nobody understands what's going on here with the DUID. It's been discussed for about at least intensively 2 years in Colorado, and it's discussing the nanograms of THC in your body, or in a test, if you will, the metabolite. And if you are familiar with cannabis, you understand that impairment does not equal the amount of nanograms in your system. It's totally different than alcohol. It is fat soluble, and sometimes it can take up to 30 days to get out of your body. So, of course, there are people that want no tolerance, and then Washington actually wrote it in their bill about that it's definitely 5 nanograms. And unfortunately for patients, if patients use a couple grams a day, their nanograms could be in upwards of 30. Don't you think, at all times? I mean, we just don't know, but it's definitely not 5 nanograms. I know that if I had an edible last night and woke up this morning, I would have more than 5 nanograms, and I would be okay to drive.
I don't think we know what the right limit is, but I think it's important for people to remember that right now the limit is 0. And so we don't want 5, but even if it ends up at 5, that's better than we have now. The question is just that it's becoming so much more prevalent. How much more prevalent will blood draws be? The law enforcement has already had the ability to do this. They just haven't tended to for whatever reasons, and I cannot wait to see. If you're a political person, there's something attached to every bill, call it a fiscal note. I want to see the fiscal note on this for doing this many roadside blood draws, or whether or not they have to take you to the hospital. And so all of that's still being talked about. And Jennifer, you would know better than I do because I am not a science person, but my understanding is that your blood level, even after an hour of consumption, can re-spike, and it tends to go up and down. And so it's not, you don't smoke or eat an edible and your level doesn't consistently go down at that point. And so the fact that they're not even comparable is frustrating. The good thing about, I don't want to say anything's good about this bill, but what's better than we've seen before is per se versus rebuttable presumption. And so per se would have meant, if this was in this bill, it would have meant if your level is 5, you're guilty no matter what. And
my God. So no proof or anything like that. It's just like, sorry, you're over 5 nanograms, done.
Right.
Okay.
And that is not in this bill. So we've been successful to this point, and there's been a lot of people who have worked on this, and Mike Elliott in particular with Meg sat on the
thanks, Mike.
JJ board and worked on that very, 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 very in depth, and those advocates were able to knock out the per se, which is a huge leap forward, but we're not done yet. And this bill, I think the first hearing in committee is, I want to say the 12th, but I'll look it up real quick because we would like people to be there and explain that you are a good citizen and you are safe on the roads and this is not fair.
Yes, and I'll talk about that while you're looking it up. And I'm sorry, we're probably a little less on the science today, but the governor formed a task force of 22 people to deal with implementation of legalization. And with that main group, there are 5 groups under that. And I'm actually in the criminal law one, the criminal law work group. And we actually, because, we knew that the DUID had been worked on for 2 years and everything, our work group made a recommendation to the main task force that we just leave what has been submitted and move on because we only had 2 months to create other recommendations. Well, the main task force basically said, well, that's not the answer we want, so you go back and do it. So we have our meeting on Wednesday, and we have to go back and hash out the DUID. Now, every task force meeting is open to the public, and you can make public comment. So I encourage you, you can go on to the Department of Revenue website for Colorado and find out when all those meetings are. And there's about 2 every day. So
it's been fun, for sure.
I'm not sure fun is exactly the word I'd use, but
it's like baseball for me. It is. It's boring, and every once in a while something crazy happens.
Like a home run?
Yeah, you got to pay attention.
Got it. So anyway, it's very important for people in Colorado to look up these meetings and come because, and please, if you would, try to if you're going to wear jeans, that's fine, but try to wear a nice shirt, a collared shirt or something. I'm not trying to, tell everyone to be something they're not, but unfortunately, your mom taught you not to judge a book by its cover, and that's the first thing everyone does. So it just would help the industry more if, we showed up with nice shirts.
I would also say show up with your inside voice. I have watched so many of these committee meetings, and yelling at the committee or telling them how stupid they are
Yeah.
does not tend to help. You need a well-crafted, reasoned statement, and it goes over much better, because the minute you yell or question somebody's intelligence, you've lost them. So you might as well not be there. And that's just, again, I'm not trying to tell people how to feel or act, but I do know from sitting on committees in a formal life that the minute you offend someone, you lose them.
Is that why no one listens to me, Jill?
Probably.
I've definitely worked on that. I definitely have. So
Poor Jennifer is on the probably most important subcommittee of all the committees, which is criminal law. And so I understand how you feel. I sat on the very first sham work group of the Colorado Department of Health and Environment, and I was outgunned and outnumbered at every turn. And it is difficult to talk to people who have already formed their opinions and don't want to listen to anything you say, regardless of whether it's true or not. And so at that point, it becomes coalition building. And how many of these people can I maybe see my point of view? And I'd say by the end of that committee, I had a fairly good coalition going with some oncology doctors and Department of Health doctors who were not there with a preformed opinion. And so anybody who comes to these committees can make a difference if you say something that rings true with someone who has an open mind. How many minds are open on those committees? I'm not sure. But criminal law, probably none. So poor Jennifer.
yeah, we'll talk about that after the break.
iVita Wellness is committed to compassionate patient care while providing the highest quality medicine at an affordable price. At iVita Wellness, patients can get top shelf ounces for $150 every day. iVita Wellness also carries pharmaceutical grade pure CO2 oil. iVita Wellness is located in Uptown Denver on 1616 Pearl Street, open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can reach us at 303-952-9150 or our website at www.ivitawellness.com. iVita Wellness is Denver's Compassionate Care Center.
This segment was brought to you by The Farm, a medical marijuana care center located at 2801 Iris Street in Boulder. The Farm carries premium cannabis, edibles, and Hummingbird brand products. Visit our new Cannabis Lifestyle store for your local artesian glass, vaporizers, and hemp clothing. The Farm has been serving Boulder since 2009. Isn't it time you come and see what we have to offer?
You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
All right. And Jill, did you find that DUID? No?
Give me a
You can't
minute.
find
See
it?
how hard it is to even
Find these
navigate.
Because they don't want people to show up.
I'm on the General Assembly website, but it's going to take me a little bit longer.
So a little bit more on the DUID. So yeah, there hasn't been a ton of studies on this, which is unfortunate. And what obviously needs to be done is a full scientific study. I think that has to do with, people from all tolerance, from smoking all day to people that maybe smoke on the weekends or use on the weekends, and then drawing blood, simulators. I mean, in order to really find out what's happening, we need, way more data than we already have. And I can tell you this, some of the patients that use 2 to 3 grams a day, you would never even know. They're not impaired at all. It's just like with pharmaceuticals. If you have terrible pain, you cannot feel the pharmaceutical. You are not impaired. It is working on your body, not your mind. So hopefully, through a consistent message, we can, like you said, open people's minds about this. And I am on a very difficult group. I'm with all police and attorneys, and I have like 2 other allies in the group, but that's it. And it's hard to talk to people that don't have an open mind whatsoever. And it's interesting what, the governor's message was. We voted The voters voted. Almost 55% yes. We need to move forward and implement it, and that's what these task force groups are. Well, you can tell the people that are completely against it and are just making everybody's lives miserable.
Okay, I finally found it.
Oh, good.
It is February 12th at 1:30 p.m. in the old Supreme Court chambers.
And what is this meeting again?
This is the Judiciary Committee, and so in the best of all worlds, we would get the committee through public testimony and well-crafted arguments to not even pass it out of committee. Given the passage of 64, I think that's unlikely, and I do, in my humble opinion, think something is going to pass this session.
Yeah.
I would add to our crafting the message, it does not do us any favors for us to say, oh, we drive better while impaired. We compensate. We drive slower. Making jokes about, the slowing down for the drive-through, that doesn't help either. It's the message needs to be, we are safe drivers. It is just like alcohol in that we need public education and awareness. And we need the science to catch up as well.
Yes, we do. And I'm all about science, as we know. But again, we do not want people driving around impaired. That's ridiculous. Do you want a bunch of drunk people driving around? Of course you don't. Do you want people on Oxycontin driving? No, you don't. But when do we say, and take accountability for our actions and not have to have the government tell us? I mean, when did we lose all accountability? I mean, if you're an adult and you can't drive, don't drive. It's fairly simple. And if you have to get somewhere, take a cab, call a friend. I know that if a friend called me to pick them up or whatever, I would definitely do that. Now, my phone number better not be ringing. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, it's part of being an adult and taking accountability. And as far as anybody underage, but the people opposing cannabis think that, that we want a bunch of teenagers smoking cannabis, and we don't, unless they have a medical condition. And there's several people under 18 that have medical conditions. I mean, for God's sakes, we give kids Adderall. It's basically crystal meth in a pill, isn't it? So, it's just a matter of changing our thoughts and our thinking towards it. But we need, when you said education, when I was in high school and we asked people to buy us alcohol or cigarettes, I didn't know that I was asking that person to commit a felony. Did you?
No, I'm not sure I would have cared at that point, but had the person who is buying me alcohol and or cigarettes known, they may have thought about it a lot differently. And I think that, we talk about signage being similar to that in liquor stores and bars. And the funny thing is, if you start looking around at signs in bars, you'll see it mentions whiskey and beer, and that's it. It doesn't talk about any other kind of alcohol. So I guess you're okay buying. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Right.
But actually, we had a message from Stickman, who is also on the governor's task force, and I guess the governor is asking that the task force endorse the DUID proposal out of CCJ, or whatever that acronym is, and he does not plan on endorsing it, and I do not think that they are going to get unanimous support on this. And the interesting thing about the task force is that the direction from the governor was come up with unanimous recommendations. That is just not going to happen in any of these meetings. So it will be interesting to see how that works. And Stickman also mentioned Progressive Insurance, who is a proud sponsor of medical cannabis and Amendment 64, a guy named Peter Lewis, who has done amazing things for this industry. They did a study which actually did show that marijuana-impaired drivers are safer than alcohol-impaired drivers, which we all know.
You are kidding me. We probably need to...
I can probably find that.
Sticky. We need to. I call Stickman Sticky. We probably need to get that up here because that's awesome. I mean, but you show these haters, let's call them, a study, and they go, oh well, I can find 10 studies that blah blah blah. It's like, wow, okay, never mind.
Well, and that's been one of the most difficult things in this industry too. And if you look at the recent rescheduling appeal, the government will continually say there's not enough what's called a gold standard study, which is a double-blind, placebo-controlled human study with enough participants to be valid. And that just does not happen in the United States. And at one point, I believe CDPHE, when looking at adding conditions, which they still have not added PTSD, I would say.
Unbelievable.
Kept saying, well, they also need to be inside this country, because if you look at other countries, Israel, for example, they are doing so much research. And the International Association of Cannabis Medicine, also a great organization that has this amazing newsletter that you can get for free, although you can become a member for 10 euros.
I think it was 5 euros. I pitched in more, though. But yeah.
They, every month, list all of the research going on. And they are a great organization, and they alone, well, they will also be at the ASA conference in February, but they alone are doing so much for research in this area.
That's fabulous. And what was that again? The
International Association of Cannabinoid Medicine, not cannabis.
Got it.
Cannabinoid.
Okay. Yeah. That's fantastic. And you're right, there are a lot of studies, but and again, it goes back to data. Like, whoever has the most data wins, and the United States is not winning. I mean, thus our country in shambles. We don't own anything. We owe. And wow, cannabis can help us not owe, maybe even pay off our debt. I mean, can you imagine that? With a substance you cannot die from? Wow. And you can die. Can you die from caffeine? You can die from Tylenol.
I'm sure you can.
I mean, it's just astounding.
I've drank enough caffeine. I thought my heart was going to explode. So
I actually did too. It was Jolt. Back in the day.
Is that still on the market?
No, that was like, let's not age myself, but yeah. Decades ago, I remember. It was like, all the kids are like, whoa.
Okay, well, I just found this great. I didn't necessarily find the progressive study, but I found Toke the Town, which has been revamped now, and I cannot remember Steve Elliott's new website. I'll have to figure that out.
Okay.
But it says the website forautoinsurancequote.com put a press release on a study which says, looking at statistics regarding accidents, traffic violations, and insurance prices, I guess the report dispelled that driving while stoned is dangerous. But again, I don't think we want to walk around saying that it's not.
No, of course not.
Just that we won't. And I'd also like to encourage people to explain to the task force that as parents, which I am, we take some responsibility for educating our children and keeping them safe and teaching them.
No way.
And
who does that?
And this save the kid thing, it's I read this great quote, and I don't know who it came from, but the child argument is the last straw of the prohibitionist. And so it's hopefully that's what we're seeing, is their last stance is save the children.
Yeah, and on that note, we will be doing a show in a couple weeks. We'll let you know on iCannabis Radio when that's going to be, but we will have a show dedicated to pediatric cannabis therapy, and hopefully I want to get a parent or a couple parents on, and I will invite those people from these task force meetings that consistently are saying, what about the kids? Just so they can actually speak to a couple parents where this plant has absolutely turned their lives around. And we're almost out of time. I did want to say, wow, this hour goes fast, Stickman. You were correct. But I want to say thank you to all my wonderful sponsors, Dixie Elixir, Blue Sage, Greenworks, The Farm.
You still have 15 minutes.
And, we still have 15 minutes? Yeah. I thought you said 3. And
3 minutes till break.
Oh, that was a break. Well, good. We'll be back after these messages. This segment is sponsored by Blue Sage Microbes. Blue Sage Microbes is a 100% organic superior cultivating system that incorporates 3 unique but very complex products that work synergistically. All of our products are manufactured, packaged, and shipped in our FDA-certified microbiology lab. Not only chemical-free and organic, every product we produce in our lab is very easy to use. Our goal is to increase value on your unique crop, whether you are a new or seasoned cultivator. It is a one-of-a-kind growing experience, and we invite every grower to measure our system side by side with your current program. You can reach out to us at bluesagemicrobes.com. Blue Sage Microbes, 100% organic cultivation system. This segment was brought to you by The Farm, a medical marijuana care center located at 2801 Iris Street in Boulder. The Farm carries premium cannabis, edibles, and Hummingbird brand products. Visit our new cannabis lifestyle store for your local artesian glass, vaporizers, and hemp clothing. The Farm has been serving Boulder since 2009. Isn't it time you come and see what we have to offer?
Tired of dispensary hopping? Trying to find quality meds? Look no further and get to know Greenworks. Our shops are stocked with over 20 strains of organically grown meds, including R4, the highest tested CBD strain in Colorado. Yes, we back up our quality with testing. While Greenworks offers only the highest quality meds, we don't believe in high prices, with eighths ranging from $20 to $40 and ounces capped at $175. With 2 centers in Denver and 1 in Glenwood Springs, we're likely closer than you think. Call 303-647-5210 to find the location nearest you.
And we're back. Evidently, Jennifer doesn't know hand signals very well, but I will get to know those. We have one last segment, so that's good. I was like, wow, that hour flew by.
You need to watch more baseball.
Evidently. I'm too busy up in the stands getting beer. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so enough about task force. Let's just talk a little bit about testing and the just a quick testing 101, because I want to make sure that we have this in this segment so we can move forward in other segments. But we'll just talk about some basic cannabis science and go from there. So there's over 100 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. Right now, CanLabs tests for 5 of those. 2 more actually have standards available, but they are extremely expensive, and I just don't see the value there yet. And let me talk about that in greater detail. So when you are testing anything in any instrument, you need to buy what's called a reference standard, and that is a pure form of the cannabinoid in this case. So from 3 separate companies, we buy CBD, THC, THC acid, and CBN. There is not CBD acid available yet, and it's kind of in depth how we come up with that number. But if you're interested, please email me, and I'll be happy to get you that information. My email.
Jennifer, I have a question.
Oh yeah, sure.
How do they get the pure form to make the standard?
So just like, well, not just like, it's a very difficult process, and it basically takes the plant down. Without getting too detailed, it goes through a some kind of a medium, or if you will, a filter, and you can see the cannabinoids, and then they further isolate them from there, and then they actually run them on an instrument to make sure that they're what they say they are, and they send you a chromatogram, which is actually the peaks or a peak, if you will, with one compound, and it's in methanol. So that's how they're able to send it to us. How we're DEA exempt is because these standards are 1 milligram per milliliter. That's all they'll send me. Not at a time. I mean, I can buy several of those, but it's in methanol. And to give you an idea, the 3 main cannabinoids, THC, CBD, and CBN, are $100 for a meg per mil. THC acid is about $400 a meg per mil. And then the 2 that I told you that were available now are CBC and CBG. Cannabigerol, I think it's pronounced. And then cannabichrome, I think, is CBC. But those are available, and I do want to get those as soon as we can. But they're about $400 each, and then you have to overnight on dry ice because they're so volatile. So, and my one and only THCV.
Yay.
So THCV is not available yet either, but it is the only cannabinoid responsible for appetite suppressant. Now, a lot of medicinal patients take cannabis for the hunger, for the stimulation of appetite, and that is directly involved with THC. But we definitely want to get THCV going and create some products. Mm-hmm. Because for people that just want to wind down at night or something like that, it's a nice alternative, in an edible especially. So anyway, 100 cannabinoids in the plant, and we only know a handful of these cannabinoids. And CBD, what I spoke about earlier, cannabidiol, basically, you can go to canlabs.com, and on the science page to the left, there's papers, and then there's a small resource section. If you click on the disease matrix, it will basically list those cannabinoids I talked about, along with the health benefits. So that's kind of a good place to start. Familiarizing yourself. So like glaucoma, that's directly related with THC. But a lot of these cannabinoids are paired with another cannabinoid. And in actuality, the reason cannabis works so well is it's an entourage effect. So instead of one molecular equation, if you will, for pharmaceuticals, one mechanism, cannabis is several mechanisms working together, several cannabinoids working together like a symphony.
So is that why cancer patients will say Marinol doesn't work for them?
That's exactly why, because Marinol is a synthetic THC only. Again, working one mechanism. So you are absolutely right about Marinol. I have not taken it, and actually I kind of would like to take it just to give a comparison, but that is definitely the reason. Synthetic and just one cannabinoid. So the reason this plant works so well is it's all or like a lock and key. And your body has an endocannabinoid system that actually binds to these cannabinoids like a lock and key. And the reason you cannot die or overdose, if you will, is because your endocannabinoid system fills up, kind of like vitamins. So if you can take all the vitamins you want, but a lot of them, go by the wayside in your porcelain god.
So do you start urinating green when endocannabinoid systems fill?
On March 17th, I urinate green. Yes, I do. Just kidding. Or I used to. St. Patty's Day. But, yeah, that's kind of interesting. You definitely pee bright yellow for vitamins.
Yeah, when they're not being absorbed. That's what
Right.
I understand.
I don't know. I'll have to pay attention to my pee next time. Just kidding. But anyway, that's just kind of the basics of cannabis and why it works so well. On the back of my business cards, I actually have 4 quick facts, and they basically are: you cannot die from cannabis. It basically has 4 side effects, minor side effects, that in fact are benefits. One being induces appetite, short-term memory loss, anxiety, and sleepiness. Now, as we know, a lot of patients, whatever, need sleep, can't sleep because they're sick, need to eat because they're so sick they can't eat. I mean, all of these so-called side effects are actually benefits.
Well, and that's another great reason to test is because the anxiety, I've talked to several people who are like, oh, I smoked pot once and it just made me so edgy and anxious. And my response would always be, we know so much more now, and the ratios make such a difference. And as a patient, when you learn what ratios work best for you, you'll be able to avoid those anxiety inducers. And so I find that tend to be sativa, which is not, an actual legitimate scientific term, but tend to be very high on THC and lower on CBD, and those tend to cause anxiety for people. So once you know that and you find tested medicine in dispensaries, you'll know what to buy to avoid those side effects, which may or may not be what you want, sleepiness or things like that.
Yeah. And speaking of that, yes, THC is the one cannabinoid that is directly related to anxiety. So, for instance, if you do have seizures, you want to stay away from high THC anything. You really want to do a lower dose of THC with high CBD. And, basically what the cannabis plant does is it brings your body back to homeostasis. Most of the diseases that it does so well with are neurological, and that either is a synapses or neurons, overfiring or underfiring. And in short, of course, that's not all it does, but the overall is that it brings your body back to homeostasis.
Well, that's one of my questions too, is I always hear, especially in these task force and work groups, oh, THC, it's evil. All it is a psychoactive. But I know it has medicinal benefits, and that for some patients, a high THC level is desired. So what other things are THC good for?
Absolutely. So reading the chart I told you about, the disease matrix on my website, THC is directly related to reducing pain. It's actually anti-insomnia. It can be a sleeping aid, and that goes back to what you hit on before, which is the ratios, which I definitely want to get into. It's also an antidepressant. It relieves spasms. It protects from neurodegenerate diseases. It reduces nausea. It encourages eating. And it is also the singular cannabinoid responsible for glaucoma, which what that does is reduces the pressure behind the eye. And again, THC is the only cannabinoid directly related to that. Now, again, we're talking about the cannabis plant, all of these working together. So, yes, sometimes you should have low THC. Maybe sometimes you need high THC. But again, it's those ratios that you mentioned. The industry is so, I believe they're botany terms, sativa, indica, I'm not sure. But basically, sativa is the more energetic, if you will. And they have said that indica is like the couch lock. And that's supposed to correlate with THC and CBD, but it doesn't always because, again, there's 100 other cannabinoids in the plant. And we would rather see people searching by ratios. And you were talking about an edible. And one that comes to mind is Mountain High Suckers. They're the first and only edible so far, I believe, out in the market that is a 2 to 3 ratio, 2 milligrams of CBD to every 3 milligrams of THC. And it is incredible for sleep. And it does not make you paranoid or anything like that.
I know sativa and indica, and I don't know where the terms originated, and we could maybe do a history show at some point. But the sativa plants tend to grow taller, lankier, where indica plants are more short and squat. But what we learned when we started testing is that's not always the case at all. and that ratio is so much more important than what a plant looks like.
You're right. Right. Like you said, I bet that you almost, if you wouldn't have tested, you probably would have left some CBD, some genetics, because we've been growing for high THC for decades now. And finally, we're growing for high CBD, and I can talk about the strains and what kind of numbers I'm seeing next time. But again, I wanted to thank my sponsors so much for taking a chance with me. I hope to make this radio show very educational. Jill and I will do our best to represent all types of science. If you have questions, please email them to Genifer, Genifer, at canlabs.com. If you forget that, you can just do info@canlabs.com. But thank you, Cannapunch, an amazing drink, Dixie, Blue Sage Microbes, The Farm, Greenworks, and Avita. I want to thank you guys so much for taking the chance with me, and I hope that whoever's listening, if you have not tried those products or been to those dispensaries, that you do so. And Jill and I will be back next week to speak about concentrates with Matt Ellis.
One of my favorite topics.
Thank you so much, Jill. I really appreciate you doing this with me.
I couldn't think of anything better to do on Monday.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.